Hey, it's me, your main man. Today we're talking about Avengers. Two of them. Issue 11 and issue 12 of Jason Aaron's Avengers book. We're gonna start with issue 11! Okay, so this is the first issue after the really big Avengers issue 700 thing with the Winter Guard and Namor's Defenders of the Deep, that whole deal. And in the end of that issue, it was revealed that Phil Coulson is the next overarching, like, big bad of the Avengers. Phil Coulson from the movies and Cheese in the comics. That guy. He's the big bad now. And I don't know how to feel about that. On one hand, Coulson has always been, like, a really wholesome and nice character who is just a good SHIELD agent, and that's sort of the point of his character, and there have been great things done with him. But on the other hand, yes, it is interesting to see a good character go bad. Usually it's a lot better when it's in an alternate universe, but there's reason here, and I'm becoming more okay with it, especially with this issue sort of heavily implying that there is a lot more going on here than just Agent Coulson wanting revenge after he came back from the dead. There's a lot of implication that's like, maybe it's not even Coulson, and maybe, you know, there's more to it than just a pure revenge plot. I was initially very worried that it was character assassination, but I trust Jason Aaron. I know he's always in it for the long haul, and I don't think that's what's going on here. I just, especially with this issue, I'm feeling more comfortable about it, but I gotta hold out for a little longer to see if Jason Aaron is truly killing Agent Coulson. But I don't think that's what's going on here. Again, I think there's more to it than meets the eye. In issue 11, we're also continuing the subplot between Thor and She-Hulk, where they're kind of into each other, and they go on a date in the Savage Land and just watch a bunch of dinosaurs beat each other up, and Jen, who is not hulked out at this point, is just like, is this your idea of a date? What's going on here? And she gets a little miffed, because she's like, you only want me for my She-Hulk! Which is pretty obviously true, but Thor's like, no, look, I like you. I like you, Jennifer. I like She-Hulk as well, she's great, but Jennifer Walters is a badass. Which is true! So, then they make out, and it's all cute and wholesome. Good for them. I'm on team Thor-Hulk? She-Thor? What's their ship name? And then, of course, there's the real meat of this issue, which is the setup for the next issue, where T'Challa calls sort of like a peace summit of superheroes from all around the world, except America, and they just get together and try and talk about reviving S.H.I.E.L.D., because S.H.I.E.L.D.'s gone at this point, but, you know, it's not actually S.H.I.E.L.D., let's not call it S.H.I.E.L.D., because it's different. They're sort of just helping the Avengers instead of helping the world, but the Avengers are a worldwide team now. So it's the Agents of Wakanda, which is what we're going to talk about with the next issue, but it's very interesting. Ursa Major goes wild. He just wants to beat everyone up because he's a crazy Russian bear man. The biggest and most exciting thing about this book in general, and it's sort of really cemented by issue 11 and 12 here, is that this Avengers book is gonna be around for a while, I think, I hope. For the past, like, 3 or 4 years at Marvel, we haven't really had, like, a consistent creative team behind an Avengers book, or even just a consistent Avengers book with different creative teams. They have constantly been I don't think there's been an Avengers book to go past, like, issue 20 in a while now, since Hickman's Avengers. But this one's giving me promise from the plot and just, like, the editorial, just letting books exist longer nowadays, ever since, you know, new editor-in-chief, all that shift. We're finally starting to see the effects of that, and with Jason Aaron on this book, he is going to just sink his dirty little claws into this book and never let it go, and Marvel seems to be okay with that, because that's the kind of writer he is. He's been telling the same Thor story since Thor God of Thunder in, like, 2013 or 2014. He's in it for the long haul, and I'm very excited about that, because again, I don't think we've had, like, a very good, consistent Avengers book for a while. Not even good, like, it could be bad. We haven't had a consistent Avengers book, and that's what I like, and that's what I want. Who knows? We could have another Hickman or Bendis Avengers on our hands. No matter how you feel about either of those stories, either of those Avengers runs, they lasted for a while and had a consistent creative team behind them. So, I hope that's what we have here. I think that's what we have here. So yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. And that whole point about the plot and the editorial and everything cementing this book as a mainstay and that it's going to stick around for a while is even more cemented by the next issue, issue 12, Agents of Wakanda. This issue is basically a recruitment issue where T'Challa and Okoye are vetting people, recruits, for the Agents of Wakanda, which is the aforementioned S.H.I.E.L.D. but not S.H.I.E.L.D. that they had the summit to talk about in issue 11. And it is a very interesting, fun cast of characters. It ranges anywhere from Gorilla Man, who's just an immortal man gorilla who has a gun also, to, you know, like trying to get people like Moon Knight. And I think Daredevil, I think they may have mentioned Daredevil, but I don't remember. It's just a lot of niche and interesting characters here that are starting to build this like support structure around the Avengers on Avengers Mountain and just throughout the world that is making this Avengers book and this Avengers team feel that much more global and that much more, you know, mainstay and real. You take a look back at the previous Avengers teams and they were all sort of held together by scraps. We had the All New, All Different Avengers, I think, where it was just Tony Stark funding a bunker or something. I think it actually may have been Peter who was giving the funding at that point, because he had his whole Parker Industries global thing. But it just, we haven't had like an Avengers team that was solid and wasn't just like, I guess we're the Avengers. Like, these guys, they're the Avengers. They're not just, yeah, I guess. Think of it this way. We haven't really had a supporting cast in an Avengers book since Hickman's Avengers. That was a while ago. Ever since we've just had those sort of ragtag groups of heroes who reluctantly came together to be a new Avengers team. But I'm pretty sure, like, even in those books, they were very adamant to say, we are not the Avengers, even though the title of the book said otherwise. Building on that point more, something that this book and this issue specifically does really well is really hitting home the fact that this is a worldwide Avengers team. The first story arc featured the Final Host, a shit ton of Celestials that came down from, you know, space times, and were just like, hey, we're gonna ruin the Earth. You wanna fight us? Cool. Do that. And this very powerful team of Avengers came together and was like, alright, we're gonna fight the Final Host and become the Avengers again. And of course Loki was there, because Loki always has to form the Avengers in some roundabout way. And that theme carries out to this issue where T'Challa, with his Agents of Wakanda, has gathered all of this information about these things, these big Avengers-level events that are happening all over the globe, and he's bringing them to the core Avengers team and saying, hey, this is what we have to deal with. What do we want to deal with first? It just makes this book feel very mainstay, very strong, and it has an intimidating presence when T'Challa is laying out, like, we've got the War of the Realms, we've got this weird thing that happened in Alaska that we don't know what's going on there with the Defenders of the Deep. We have all these events that are going on, and T'Challa's just like, hey, we can take care of these. We just need to figure out which one we want to take care of first, because we're the Avengers, and we have a massive to-do list to get through. It just feels very grand. The scale of this book is big, and that, in my opinion, is how an Avengers book should feel. Also, Blade is an Avenger now, so that's cool, I guess. The only real criticisms I have about these two issues is the whole Phil Coulson thing. If that does turn out to be character assassination and doesn't lead to anything more interesting than just Phil Coulson died at the hands of Deadpool and came back and wanted revenge because he's petty, I guess, that's gonna suck. I wouldn't like that. And also, at times, especially in the first out of the two issues that I reviewed here, the art can be a little bit goofy. Just in certain panels, the eyes they just don't look like human eyes. They sort of look like random anime eyes that are just pasted onto these comic book characters. But, you know, it happens. The art's not awful. Overall, though, I am super enjoying this book, and these two issues are just cementing my opinion that Jason Aaron is a good writer, and he can do a good Avengers. And I hope Marvel lets him see this out. I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, Avengers is a bigger name than Thor. Thor is a massive name, and he's had that name for 4 or 5 years now, but I would be very okay with Jason Aaron handling the Avengers for for the foreseeable future. Keep on keeping on, Chief. That's my Avengers review. Is this my thing now? I spin in this chair when I'm done talking. Buy this book or I will end your family. They'll just be gone. I'm gonna hack into the simulation and delete their code. Fucking pest me, bitch.